Hi, Christine.
Mhm.
Christine, your Christmas tree looks beautiful.
Hi,
Hi,
everybody.
Emily.
Hi. Hi, Zoe. Oh
Can you
my
guys,
God.
can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
great. Galen's running a few minutes late, so I'm just gonna turn the audio and camera off, just we'll hang out, and when everyone's back in here, I'll turn everything else back on, okay?
Okay, great. Thanks.
Thanks. Okay, Galen, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to call this meeting of the Madison Board of Education Finance Committee to order. It is 5:35. We have a short, but I hope productive agenda. It's basically an open-ended discussion of a preview of this year's budget. And I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Cook and Stacy Novus.
Yes, thank you, Galen. And so each year we're able at this point kind of to give the committee and then ultimately I know you give the board an update on where we are with several of the fixed costs, some of the accounts that just are a function of new contracts or things going up, costs going up, things we're locking in at the best rate possible at this time. And so I'll turn it over to Stacy very shortly. I can say our central office leadership team has been meeting to review the budget and receive the requests from principals. They have all been received, and we meet next week as administrative council. So that's with the principals and central office leadership, and we'll go through the process of determining priorities and paring down some of the requests we received from the schools. But we do have, as we do each year at this time, some good news and bad news that we're going to review with the committee, and Stacy and I talk, and I'll have her lead that off, and I'll jump in as we go through it.
Okay. So of course, the big item is the contractual for the salaries. This is something that we like, you all to know ahead of time before we even start the process, because there's no really wiggle room there. So we're looking at with contractual for everybody around $1 million before we start anything else. And that would include the increases for the teachers, the paras, custodians, the administrators. And that would equate to about 1.75% increase before we even begin. So I just kind of wanted to lay that out there so you're not surprised when that comes your way.
It's not assuming any retirements or resignations, and we don't have it at this point, so that's partly why. But so that's taking all our employees and rolling them forward based on the contracts that we've agreed upon.
The next big item is the end of our ARPA grant. I know we've been talking about this since it came. When we started with it all, when we increased our personnel budget for the social worker, 2 social workers and 2 interventionalists.
That's sort of our bottom, yeah.
Sorry, yeah, that's right. So those 4 positions were filled by the grant money, and now we're pretty much done at the end of this fiscal year. So you will see that as part of an increase to the budget than last year.
Can I ask on that, was there state money that was added to help offset that just for a couple of years in a tapering fashion?
They have talked about that. I think they did. They are claiming that the increase in ECS for some districts will help with that, but that doesn't apply to Madison because we're capped at about $350,000 for ECS, I believe. So it's not going to help us out.
Thank you.
So those are the bigger, the HR items. Not sure if you have any questions related to salaries at this point.
Well, put it in perspective, last year's increase was about 1.58%. So it's not a drastic bump up as far as we know right now. Outside of the grant, grant money, that is. So, yeah. Do we have another big line item that we want to talk about?
So that was the HR related items.
Yes.
Is that good? Okay.
Christine, do you have any questions?
No, I'm good right now. Thanks.
Just raise your hand or
Okay.
raise
Thank
something.
Okay, and then just again, non-negotiable items. Contractual, so to speak, the normal utilities fixed costs, as Craig said, for electric and water, so we did build in a 4% increase for our electric. And it looks like our water could be going up 18%, which is $8,000 to put in perspective.
Yeah.
But those are the things that we're looking at right now. Our transportation, we do have a 2.5% contractual
With
increase.
Durham.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, and we're in this will be budgeting for year 4 of a 5-year agreement. I think the first year was 0, and then it was 2.5 for 4 years.
Right.
So that's no different than last year. And then the other thing would be fuel. So we were able to lock in at about a 45-cent decrease. So we lock in about 50 gallons. And so we will have a little bit of a savings in our fuel coming up. So that's good news.
50,000.
50, yeah, I was gonna say that's
50, oh, what did I say?
50 gallons.
Oh, it's sorry, 50, yeah, 50 gallons. Yeah, that's all we need, 50,000 gallons.
We've
yes.
gone green.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, sorry.
And how do we handle natural gas?
We did not lock in for the gas yet. We rely on the town side to lock in because they fill the tanks and then we reimburse the town for that. So this is a diesel.
Seems to have been coming down from what I hear. I know you would know more than me.
Yeah, it's about as cheap as it's been in the last 5 years.
Okay.
So, and it's just a commodity that's vulnerable to spikes.
I believe when we talked to Bill on Monday, he said, John,
Yep.
it was close.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, they're looking to sign an agreement. I don't know the rate, but they are looking to sign an agreement to lock in our gas.
Okay.
Not to micromanage.
So that 50,000 gallons is diesel,
It's
not.
diesel.
Yeah.
Just diesel for the
Buses.
transportation for the buses.
Okay. Do we also have oil that we seek to lock in usually?
Yeah, again, that's also through the town, we mostly.
Through the town, yeah.
So,
We did not budget an increase for the oil, but we will not be budgeting. Okay, and then that's pretty much the operating budget, other than health insurance.
That's a minor item.
Yeah, so we did have a meeting with our consultants, and it looks like we will have about a 9.6% increase. Based on our claims,
it's not terrible.
it's not terrible.
Right. It's not what we were dealing with before, we had 3 or 4 years in a row, about 0 to 2% increase. We're hearing districts going 20% and having to go to state plans and things like that, or change back to fully insured, things like that. So we're not, at that point, but we've definitely had some high cost cases and dealing with some rising costs. So that, and as opposed to last year, I think when we first, because we were coming off of a 2 when we went to about a 10,
Yeah.
we were hoping that we'd receive better news. I'm not expecting that this will get any better throughout the process. Right.
Yeah.
Stacy's probably more pessimistic on that than I am, because I tried, but it does not look good. I mean, this is pretty specific from experience, and so if we ever did, we certainly would pass that along, but I think that's pretty accurate to where we're running.
Yeah, so before last year, I think we were at a 2% increase. The year before that, we were basically flat. I think we even went down a little bit. But our consultants did say, the numbers are just higher for everybody. And it does, I mean, we're pretty much looking at all the history of the years, we're pretty good with our claims. So eventually, there's gonna be a year or two that it does get us.
And they did compliment us on, the negotiations with employee groups in terms of some of the changes we've made and how impactful they are. Kind of showed what it would be if we had done some of that work, so. Support, yeah.
Okay. So the next item, which is good news, is our debt service is being reduced by about $585,000. This is the second to last year that we will have savings. Next year it will go down about 368,000, and then moving forward, the plan is to put all of the debt service on the town's budget. So you will see that reduction, the overall Board of Ed budget this year of 585. And then just two other items that we wanted to talk about. I can start on the athletics and then you could, if that's okay. So the transportation overall for our pay to play program when the buses go out to the games. We've pretty much we've been very tight over the years. We've definitely improved our process for budgeting. We have a good idea of what we're going to need, but we will be short. We try to have our registration fees cover the costs for transportation. But historically, it's been really tough. Our new athletic director has done an excellent job as far as listing out all of our games and, you know, the potential transportation costs. And the good news is if we do great, then we need more
Well,
buses,
That's right.
you know,
Stop
so
and state championship.
that's kind of what happens. But so we do think we need to start budgeting a piece of this into the general fund. So I think we're looking at about $45,000 that we want to shift over into the general fund that our fees would not be able to pay for.
When you say general fund, you mean,
Our budget.
okay. yeah,
So we
right.
have another fund where we collect our registration
right.
fees and we hope that those fees will pay for the
Right,
transportation.
okay,
Historically, we've had to do line transfers to help with that, and now we're saying, okay, enough's enough, these are the fees, so we need to budget for them in our LEA budget.
That's a function of rising costs and then also smaller teams too. So, you know, we're looking at smaller teams which bring in less revenue.
Yeah, whether you have 40 kids or 20 kids, you still need the same buses.
Yeah,
So those were the items I think that I wanted to highlight, and I know you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, I wanted to share that, you know, at this point, we are putting in funding for the reading mandate. You know, I think that can go many different ways from here. You know, as we sit, we're still being told by the state that we'll receive information on our waiver by December 1. So if, let me start, we have $600,000 in there for the reading mandate based on the program that we would select if we were forced to select one of the 5 programs.
that's what you're putting into this budget, not what we have saved or anything.
Correct.
Okay,
So we would put in that. Certainly there would be a process that we go through and the you know, the board would be involved in that. I think there's multiple outcomes to the process. So again, we want to put the kind of the worst case scenario financially, and this is the finance committee, so you know, I'll save most of my rhetoric about what I feel about the mandate, and I don't think it's right for Madison, and I think our reading program is better. You'll see scores later on tonight. I think the scores would drop if we had to do this mandated program. Teacher, you know, satisfaction, I think would go down. You know, students would have a not as good an experience. But so we put in $600,000 for that program. If we receive the waiver, we could bring that down to 100,000 because our plan would be to continue to pay for the programs that we do use and also refresh the classroom libraries and some other pieces there. If we don't get the waiver and the board decides to go forward and be in compliance for September 1, we would do the 600,000. I believe there could be an opportunity where the state gives us one more year, because here we are December 1st. Most districts, we're maybe a little ahead of most districts. So some districts are already, you know, at the board level for budget. You know, we're pretty close. So it's really hard, and I think that we want to go through a process, you know, with you know, staff heavily involved to select the program. I don't, you know, I think this is so far, this is like administrator, reading consultant input, reading coaches input, things like that of those programs. So you know, I think we'd still do some due diligence on that and have some work still to be done. then there's, the board could take the option if we got a no on this to say, we're not implementing it next year, and then that also would bring the money down as well. So I think there's some conversations still to be had. We're still, I'm still optimistic that our waiver will be approved. I think we put a really good waiver forward, and that would bring the budget down significantly than what we're looking at right now. So that's what I'm hopeful for many different reasons, but we wanted to put forward the 600,000 just to kind of put that out there for the board, so you knew. And I think it wouldn't be prudent to put something lower and then have the community board look at a reading program and then have it be restricted to ones we could afford with whatever budget we can afford. So it's kind of, like I said, the best of those programs. That's what we did for that, and hope to have good news for you by the end of the week. Yeah. We also put money for substitutes in the account. So we are proposing for $32,000 more for substitutes. We know that account is running high this year based on some illnesses and open positions and maternity leaves. Oftentimes, pretty much always, those increased sub costs come with savings in salaries because they're open positions or somebody out unpaid, or an unpaid portion of maternity leave helps cover that. And so we typically cover that, but it's been a few years in a row here, and then also it may be time to raise the rates for subs so we can continue to employ them like everybody else receiving an increase most years.
On what order are you talking about? An increase in the substitutes account?
32,000.
Thank you.
So when we meet next week, we'll talk about potential reductions, additions, at the school level, we'll talk about the proposals from the schools, but that's kind of the high level of some accounts that we were able to nail down as best we could at this point.
Thank you. Emily or Christine, do you have any questions or comments?
I actually had just one comment or question. With the transportation, Stacy, with the budget, you mentioned locking in on a diesel rate. So is the transportation contract inclusive of the fuel, or is fuel extra?
Fuel is separate.
Wow.
So transportation contract alone goes up for our buses for 2.5%, and then we pay for the fuel for the buses. And
What's
that's what we're locking in. for diesel.
What's the transportation whole budget just for regular, not athletic or not special ed, just regular?
If you give me a minute, I don't have that.
I have
Oh, you have it?
last year, I don't know if this is, I think this is not counting special ed, but I have 3.9 million. That sound right?
Well, Stacy's looking for that. I can share the reason why we purchase the diesel directly is we don't pay taxes on that. If Durham purchased the fuel and stored it themselves, we would pay taxes. They would pay taxes for it, but because we purchase it and store the fuel and they fill up the buses at our pump, that we don't have to pay taxes on.
So it's 3.9, and then how much is the diesel budget?
50,000.
50,000?
Well, 50,000 gallons. Yeah, S times 5.
45 cents now, which is last year. I don't know what it was last year. So
Maybe $250,000.
Because one of the things that we do with that is stagger it oftentimes. So we'll buy, actually no, diesel we do buy year to year, because then we have to return it at the end of June if we don't take it. So diesel's one where we do. Electricity will stagger purchases.
Yeah, so the fuel. With special ed. Is a budget for 315. Regular transportation. With school choice. Is about 2.2.
Okay, so. In the big line item where it says, transportation students, that must include special. Just round out the gauge here.
Activity.
If I read across like right there.
Yeah, it includes all of the transportation
Okay.
and activities.
Right,
all
okay,
of them.
thank you,
The 2.2 was just for our regular.
got it, okay, thank you.
How is the diesel tracked?
In terms of usage or prices?
In terms of, no, in terms of usage, mileage? How is that all tracked?
I'd have to ask Art exactly how, here, they do that, I know, in other places, you know, we've got a fill up card, like they do a punch, you know, an account, so I'd have to check with Art how that's tracked. They can get you that information.
And has the diesel and the fuel always been a separate line item in the contract for the past X number of years?
Yeah, it would have because of those reasons. I think pretty much every district does it that way too. Because as you know, the taxes on fuel is huge. So it's a pretty significant savings for the board to do that separately.
This is a little off point, but how's our driver situation? Let's talk about Durham, the bus company.
We're still officially one driver short on a route. And you know, we've been able to fill the vans. We had to add a van this year. So we've been able to fill the vans, and they've been pulling subs from other places when needed. But when we started this school year off, we did have to combine one route that had impacted middle school students kind of the most. So we're still trying to recruit. But that savings, you know, not that we set out to do that, but that savings has offset the need for the other van driver van, so which was a special ed transportation. So we're much better off than most, but you know, it's not yeah, especially in into the winter when you start to see illnesses and things like that. But they have raised their pay on their end quite a bit, so that's where I think, you know, to talk about a 2.5% increase in the contract, they have seen a much higher increase in pay than that.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that checks all the major boxes. Why not? Are there any other questions, Christine?
I'm good, thanks. Thank you.
Stacy, Dr. Cook, thank you. Senator, anything? No, thank you. Do we have any questions from the audience? We have an audience.
We do, but there are no hands raised.
Okay, well, thank you, whoever you are out there. Well, with that, let's go ahead and motion to adjourn at 6 o'clock. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you. Motion adjourned.
Thank you.